So warm greetings. Now about Dr. Soumitra Basu, the speaker tonight. I'm sure many of you will know him. He's a consultant psychiatrist based in Kolkata, Puducherry, and he works with consciousness paradigms in health and psychology. He conducts workshops on personal growth and is a founder editor of NAMAH, the Journal of Integral Health. He's author of the book Integral Health, and has developed a module of consciousness-based psychology, and recently published and written a book by that name with Michael Miovich of the USA, based on the wisdom of Aurobindo and the Mother. And the title of his session this evening is Stabilising the Mood in an Integral Perspective. So very much looking forward to these insights. And over to you, Dr. Basu.
Thank you, James. Am I audible?
Yeah, very much so.
So thank you all for participating in today's program on the highs and lows. And the topic indicates that we are dealing with our emotions. And our emotions arise from the vital plane of consciousness. As you know, we have a physical plane of consciousness, we have a vital plane of consciousness, and we have a mental plane of consciousness. The physical plane deals with the body, the mental plane deals with our cognition, and our vital plane deals with our emotions and our life energy. Emotions and our life energy of conflicting emotions. You see, emotions are always conflicting with each other. So there is happiness and sadness. There is always an aggression and something without aggression. Always there is a bipolarity in emotions. And all these emotional bipolarities are together there in the vital plane of consciousness. So all the passions, all the emotions, all our emotional transactions, all they arise from the vital plane. And so you can realize that if depression comes from the vital plane, then opposite of depression, excitement can come also from the vital plane. So all these things, all the emotions are constantly conflicting with each other. In our personality, we have all these emotions which are conflicting with each other, and all these conflicting emotions stay in the vital. And the vital is our body, seat of our life energy and our seat of creativity. The vital is our seat of creativity. So a person with high creativity has also a vital which is very active, where the turbulence, passions, and the turbulence of the passions is also very active. So that is why frequently you see artists suffering from what you call lopsidedness in their character. As you know, Van Gogh was emotionally unstable. So there were many diagnoses of him. Of course, as late as 2016, there was over 30 people met and discussed about the possible diagnosis of Van Gogh, and nothing was found except that the diagnosis was more or less prosaic towards the end. But still, nevertheless, he was as much a genius, as much an artist, as much an emotionally volatile person. So that means creativity, high creativity requires the vital to be very active. And once the vital is very active, all the things in the vital, they become activated. The emotional bipolarities become activated. So that is why it is possible that a very famous artist can be very emotionally unstable. It is not that it is not that everybody will be like that, but the possibility is always there. And then think about love in general, what we call love. Love arises from the vital, and the vital love cannot be very perfect. Love usually, you see, love has many sources of origin. So there is a psychic love which arises from the psychic being, which is different. But the love that arises in the vital, because love is an emotion and all emotions are in the vital, and the love that arises in the vital is always, it has a bit of impurity. It cannot be pure and it cannot be stable. And that is what we see in the world. You see the work of the heart chakra. The heart chakra, the chakra system, you know, the heart chakra is to free the human love from its impurities. Because everything comes in evolution, it comes from below. In evolution, everything comes from inconscience. So the vital has come from the inconscience, things have come from the inconscious. And the inconscious contains the superconscious of what is there in the superconscious. So it has all the negative things in it. The superconscious, what is good, what is beautiful, what is true, as what is night. So everything is different, everything is opposite of the superconscious. All the values are opposite. And from there, evolution starts. And from there, this the being. So love that comes to evolution and manifests in the vital is bound to be impure. And the work of heart chakra is to pure the vital love by cutting off its moorings with the other parts of the system. But the psychic being, you see, Aurobindo brings the psychic being behind the heart chakra. The psychic being comes from the Jivatma, and the Jivatma comes from the overmind. So it doesn't come from the inconscience. It doesn't evolve from the inconscience. The psychic being has got love, is represented love. That love is pure because it has come from the superconscious. The psychic being's love is pure because it has come from the superconscious. So it is not, it is going to influence the vital, but it has not originated in the vital. It will, of course, influence the vital. If it can come in front, it can influence the vital. But that is why you see that ordinarily love is bound to be impure, not lasting. And the vital, because it contains opposite things, so if self-justification, it has self-justification. At the same time, it has self-depreciation and a morbid self-criticism. The vital carries self-justification. It also carries self-depreciation and morbid self-criticism. That is the nature of the vital. So on one hand, it has positive, and the other hand, it has negatives, and organized self-deception adds to self-ignorance. Self-deception is added to self-ignorance. That it can blow itself up and it can blow itself down. It can have self-depreciation, it can have self-justification, both together. morbid self-criticism. So that is also there in the vital. So the vital is you can understand that the vital is the house of all these conflicting emotions, and therefore all these conflicting values, all these conflicting judgments of life. Vital is responsible for all that. And then vital is the place of desire, is the place of desire. And desire has no end. Desire can leave you satiated but never satisfied. Desire can leave you satiated but never satisfied. It's just the case that it happened in one of my friends' clinic one day. One person came and he said that he had achieved everything he wanted to achieve in his life, and there was nothing else left to achieve, so he wanted to die. Why? He came from a poor background. His parents were poor, but he had compensated it. He amassed wealth. He was short in height. He went to gym and he became strong, stout, and a bit taller. He came from an uneducated background. He got himself educated. He came from a family with poverty, and now he had plenty of money. So whatever he wanted to achieve, he had achieved. And now there was nothing else to do, so he just wanted to die. So he came to the clinic asking, what is the method to die? So you see that the vital is always is like that. It is satiated, but it is never satisfied. And then the other thing of vital is, the vital is impatient. And that is why we suffer. We suffer because we are always competing with one thing of the vital, with which we should not compete. We always compete with time. We always compete with time. So competing with time leads us nowhere. Because if you see in this world today, most of our problems arise because we are always competing with time. And that is a timeless dimension. There is a dimension of timelessness also, which supports time. So if we know to go to our inner being, which is connected with the cosmic consciousness and which is free from the urges of the time, then we can live a better life. But we always remain in the outer being. And competing with time leads us to type A personality. You know, type A personality, always working, work alcoholic, is very responsible, always working with time constraints. This time we have to finish this project. By this time we have to finish this interview. By this time we have to earn this amount of money. So always competing with time, and that leads to ischemic heart disease 10 years before the normal population. So top executives of big multinationals, they suffer from type A personality, and competing with time schedules is the vital for the normal population. So that is the price we have to pay for being impatient, for competing with time. Whereas if we could learn to be with our inner being, and our inner being has got an inner vital which is connected with the cosmic consciousness, then we could overcome this shortcoming. We could be connected with the dimension of timelessness, which supports time. Of course, which supports time. But if we are connected with this dimension of timelessness, then we are free from stress-induced diseases. Stress, because impatience is a cause of stress. Competing with time is a cause of stress. And to be free from stress, we have to be in our inner being, which is connected with the timeless dimension. And then only we can be free from the stress-linked diseases. And the vital is a source of fear. The vital is a source of fear. As you know, fear, because of fear, we fall ill. Mother said many times that fear leads to illness. And fear is there at many levels. There is the level of the fear at the mind, there is the level of the fear at the vital. There is but all are different. You see, in the vital, there is a recoil, but in the vital, you feel a recoil. And you often feel the fear, vital fear, you feel in the abdomen. The vital fear, that recoil, you feel in the abdomen. It's not that you are feeling it in the chest always, you are feeling it in the mind always. You feel it in the abdomen also. The vital fear is like that. You see, anger, fear, and jealousy. Anger is also an important point. Anger is an important point. Anger has increased nowadays. People come to psychiatric consultation just for anger, nothing else. I have people who come to me who just come for anger management. And there is nothing else, no other psychopathology, except that they can't control their anger. Anger has become more widespread. Anger has become more widespread today. There are many reasons for it. Perhaps taking a lot of sedatives in our culture also has contributed to this anger. Sedatives increase anger. If you are on sleeping pills always, it increases anger. But that is only one index. There are other indices also. But overall, anger has increased. And anger, fear, and jealousy, they are there in our navel chakra. Our navel chakra, our lower vital chakra is involved with this anger, fear, and jealousy. So love, hope, and pity, they are there in the heart chakra. As love, hope, and pity are there in the heart chakra. So you are working with the heart chakra, you are working with love, hope, and pity. And you are working with the navel chakra, you are working with anger, fear, and jealousy. And you see, a mental fear is a cognitive fear. A vital fear is in mental fear you can work through with cognitive behavioral method. Vital fear, that cognitive behavioral method is, which is a very common psychotherapy today. That vital fear, it is unable to do much because it needs a resolute will. It needs a resolute willpower to be developed. So, and it is more subtle. It requires a more subtle handling. It requires a more resolute willpower to be developed to deal with that. So fear has many connotations in psychology, but the mental fear and the vital fear have to be separated. The mental fear and the vital fear have to be separated. And you see, the combination of the two, the physical in the outer personality, there are always combinations to understand things. You see, in outer personality, the physical, vital, and mental can't be separated. They are all intermixed together. They are all intermixed with each other. In the outer personality, the mental, vital, and physical are always intermixed with each other. Only in the inner being they become separate. In the inner being, if you go, they become separate. But in the outer being, they are always there together. And in the outer being, you have to, therefore, to understand the outer being, the connotations of the vital, you have to understand them through combinations. And the combinations Sri Aurobindo uses to these combinations, Sri Aurobindo uses them with two words. For example, physical, vital, vital, physical. The second word is the second term in this phrase is the main is the index emotion which is indicated, and the first word is the influence or the modifying influence. For example, the vital physical. To understand the vital physical, that means the physical is the main thing. The physical is full of inertia. The physical consciousness is full of inertia, and the vital is life energy. And the life energy is influencing, is forcing the physical to follow it, to leave its inertia and to follow the vital. You see, when the first time when in evolution, when the vital energy came in, it impinged on the physical. When the first time when the vital energy or the life energy, when it was first wanted to manifest, first thing what happened, it was the physical which came out in evolution. In evolution, it was the physical which first manifested, and the physical is full of inertia. And to break that inertia, the next stage of evolution, the vital life energy comes in. And the life energy impinges on the inertia. It was a terrible friction. It was a terrible friction, mind you. It is a terrible friction. The vital energy working on the inertia of the physical. It is a terrible friction. It was a terrible friction at the beginning. And that friction is still carried in us, in our subconscious, in our organs. I repeat that during evolution, the physical consciousness came first, and the physical consciousness had inertia as its characteristic. And then the life energy came. Animate matter, inanimate matter became animate. For the life energy to make it animate, inanimate matter animate, it had to impinge on the physical. It had to impinge on the inertia. And this impingement was caused the friction. And the friction was a tremendous friction. Tremendous friction it was in the beginning. And that friction is in us. It is in our subconscious. In our subconscious, we still carry the memory of that. Like a post-traumatic stress disorder. Like a post-traumatic stress disorder, this also is carried in our inside the memory of our organs, and these organs get affected. When they get affected, then this physical, then this vital physical comes in front. The vital physical consciousness comes in front when it becomes affected, so that the inertia of the physical has to succumb to the vitality of the life energy. The inertia of the physical has to succumb to the vitality of the life energy. And this you see in, for example, in romance, no? You see this vital physical thing happening. And it is a vital physical is carried, it is responsible for the illnesses of our body. It is because the whole nervous system is carried in the vital physical. The whole nervous system is carried in the vital physical consciousness. And therefore, the vital physical is responsible for most of our illnesses. And the opposite is the physical vital. Physical vital is what? The vitality has to succumb to the inertia of the physical. The vitality has to succumb to the inertia of the physical. Whereas in the vital physical, it was the opposite. In the vital physical, it was the opposite, where the inertia had to succumb to the life energy. But in the physical vital, the inertia overrules. You see this in suppose in rape, in sadomasochism, in rapes, in sadomasochism, this is a factor which plays. In rape, there is no romance, there is no love, but there is something that happens. And what happens is that the physical inertia or the physical consciousness is more important than the romance, than the life energy. It is the physical consciousness that gets enjoyment. And actually, it is the physical vital which needs enjoyment, which needs happiness in our system. Though that is exploited by others, The vital physical exploits that happiness, but the physical vital needs that happiness. So all these different combinations are needed to understand the human being's perspective and the outer being. And then, of course, we have the vital mind. And the vital mind is the origin of what we call bipolar disorder. The vital mind is the origin of the what we call the bipolar disorder. Sorry, it went off. So the vital mind is responsible for the bipolar disorder. You know, in bipolar disorder, there is depression, that is excitement. Now, because the vital contains the all the opposite emotions, so it is not surprising that a person who expresses depression can also express the opposite of depression. You see, in the vital mind has supports bipolar disorder. In depression, there is dejection of life, there is low mood, people are really low, you feel sad, you feel unhappy, and that unhappiness can go to that extreme where you feel like dying, and actually some people commit suicide. So the depression is that, the depressive phase is that where one can commit suicide, one feels sad, one feels unhappy, and physically also one loses one's appetite, one doesn't sleep at all, one loses one's intention to work, motivation to work, all that is lost. And depression is different from anxiety, remember. In anxiety, that motivation to work is not lost. In anxiety, people suffering from anxiety and people suffering from depression are different. In anxiety, there is also a great resistance to work, but they will work. The person will work, and after the work is completed, one will feel satisfaction, one will feel enjoyment in the work. But in depression, there is no motivation to work. And even if one does the work, one does it in a dissatisfaction between depression and anxiety. I'm telling this because often they are together. Often they are together. Depression and anxiety often are there together because all the things come from the vital. All the things come from the vital. Anxiety also comes from the vital. But pure anxiety is different. Pure anxiety is that it will be tremendous opposition for work, but one will work. And after the work, one will enjoy having worked. But in depression, there is no motivation to work at all. And then one might commit suicide. You see, when one commits suicide, people say, I ask people, depressed persons, I often ask, are you suicidal? Then usually a person will say, no, doctor, I don't have the strength to commit suicide. I don't have the strength to commit suicide. I don't have the mental strength to commit suicide. But do you think that mental strength is needed for suicide? Do you think that? Mental strength is not needed for suicide. Mental strength is not needed for suicide. When all willpower has become frustrated, all willpower has been damaged, all willpower has dissolved, then the negative forces in the atmosphere, the negative forces, negative occult forces in the atmosphere, they catch hold of the person and they drive the person to commit that cowardly act. So this is important. This you have to remember. When the willpower is dissipated, when the willpower is not there at all, when the will has dissolved completely, willpower has dissolved completely, then the negative forces in the atmosphere, they catch hold of the person and they drive that person to commit that cowardly act. So in depression, the willpower gets dissolved. And you see, the opposite of depression is excitement in bipolar disorder. People suffering from depression might be unipolar, might be always suffering from depression, but some people will alternately suffer from depression and excitement. And excitement, one is grandiose, from grandiosity. One suffers from megalomania. One suffers from being able to do all things together, all things they want to do together. You see, uh, if you see separately, each thing has its value, but all things together make a mess of themselves. So that is grandiosity, that is megalomania, that is excitement, that is also no sleep. In depression, there is no sleep. In excitement, also there is no sleep. But one works and works and works more and more and more. One first starts by working more, and then ends up in getting disorganized by doing hundreds of things together. So this is the vital. This is the vital. This is, you see, the highs and lows, what we say, are coming from the same source. The same source is giving the low, and the same source is giving the high. So, and it is not surprising, because all the conflicting emotions are there in the vital, that the vital mind can produce bipolar disorder. And also in children, you see, unless they can cognize what is depression, their depression is expressed through aggression, because aggression is also there in the vital. You see, the vital contains all the things, all the opposite things it contains. So in children, depression, they cannot be cognized by children. Some children, they cannot cognize what is depression. So instead of depression, aggression comes out. So if you see an aggressive child, it might be that the aggression is expressing a depression. Aggression is expressing a depressive illness. So that you have to remember, that all aggressive children are not aggressive as such. They might be depressed, and the depression might be expressed as aggression. So whatever is there in the vital, anything can come out. Anything can come out. So in mood disorders, if the depression comes out, the excitement has also an equal chance of coming out, and aggression has also an equal chance of coming out. So a depressed person might be excited at one point in life, might be aggressive at another point in life. It is not surprising that a person who is feeling sad, feeling morose, feeling to suicide, well, how can we understand if it's aggression, depression? A child, it requires clinical training. It requires clinical training. It requires history. History taking is very important. So you have to follow the whole history of the child. Then only you can understand whether it is depression or whether it is something else. So the history of the child is very important. Some children are temperamentally aggressive, angry from the very beginning. Then it's different. In children, we don't talk about personality, we talk about temperaments. And temperamentally, you see, all children are different. Some children will be aggressive temperamentally from the very beginning. From the very beginning of their lives, they are a bit aggressive. So that is a different thing. But this bipolar disorder is again a different thing. And the psychotherapeutic interventions, what we do, in psychotherapeutic interventions, we go in for mood disorders. How do we proceed? You see, we have why is feeling all these emotions to his fullest and expressing them termed as moody? Moody doesn't mean a negative thing. Moody also means a positive thing. Anything moody, because we always, it is our pattern to identify the negative things first. Now, the cognitive behavioral approach is one thing. Psychoanalysis works through defense mechanisms, and defense mechanisms comes through the vital. The psychoanalysis works with defense mechanisms, and defense mechanisms arise from the self-justification. You see that I told that we are suffer from self-justification and self-criticism, and all these things give rise to defense mechanisms in psychology. And psychoanalysis works by resoluting these defense mechanisms, but that work is what you call has limitations. Then mindfulness techniques work in a different way. The mindfulness techniques work as making the mind as a witness to all things that has happened. So the mind is made as a witness to all things that has happened. So that is one procedure, by making the mind as a witness. And mindfulness techniques have come now and are repressing psychoanalysis, are repressing other forms of therapy. But our viewpoint, integral psychology or cognitive or consciousness-based psychology, is different, because from our viewpoint, Sri Aurobindo's viewpoint, the involvement of the psychic being is implicated. So it is not only as a witness and not only about resoluting the differences given by the defense mechanisms that is important. What is important is that the psychic being has to come forward as the regulator of life, and everything has to be seen from the psychic being's standpoint. And the psychic and the vital, physical, mental have to be brought together, and they have to be brought together around the psychic being. So they have to be brought together. To bring them together, you have to understand them. To understand them, you have to move from the outer being to the inner being. To understand them, you have to move from the outer being to the inner being. Otherwise, you don't understand them. And once you bring them to the inner being, then you can tie them up around the psychic being. And the psychic being can progress together with the physical, vital, mental, all these instruments to act. And the physical, vital, and mental have to be made instruments for the psychic being to act. So that is our difference, that the psychoanalysis, mindfulness techniques works with the mind as a witness to all activities, and our integral psychotherapy works by using the psychic being as the fulcrum of the being. Now, there are certain sets of exercises which the mother has given, which are very useful. The first exercise, I would say, to understand our vital movements, to control our vital movements, to control our highs and lows. The first is to project as if on a cinema screen a whole day's activities. So as if you project your whole day's activities on a cinema screen. I see it is very interesting. It is very important also, because in near-death experiences, you have heard of near-death experiences. Near-death experiences are, you see people who technically die for a few seconds, or at a very critical state, they can be brought back to life nowadays by very innovative techniques in the ICU. In the intensive care unit, it has become more sophisticated now, and can bring back to life people who are technically dead for a few moments, or people who are in coma, or people who are on the verge of dying. And these people all over the world, they are saying the same thing. And it is very interesting, very important also to understand that what they are saying is, it cannot be equated to any dreams or hallucinations. Because even during sleep, the ascending reticular activity is active. You see, we have an alerting system in our body, which is called the ascending reticular activating system. And the ascending reticular activating system is active when we are asleep. That means sleep is not an unconscious phenomenon. Sleep is a conscious phenomenon. Sleep is a conscious phenomenon because our ascending reticular activating system is active. Now, when one is in coma, this system is not active. Therefore, one is in what experience one gets. You cannot equate that with dreams because dreams occur in normal sleep. And normal sleep, we know the ascending reticular activating system is active. It's not deactivated, but it is system is deactivated during coma. In coma, it is deactivated, and therefore, in coma, whatever happens, you cannot equate it with either a dream or a hallucination. So it comes from some different level. It comes from some different level of consciousness, experience from a different level of consciousness. And what these people are telling all over the world, all over the world, the people are saying the same thing. They are saying that they are going through a tunnel, into the tunnel that is light, and they are seeing a life review. They are seeing a life review of whatever they have done in life. And they are seeing beings of light. The thing, see the fear also. And when they come back from coma, they might be paralyzed. They might be, four limbs might be paralyzed, but the personality has changed. The personality changes. Now, this is a whole worldwide phenomenon. This is happening nowadays. And these life reviews are showing that in all religions that is there, that we are accountable for whatever we have done in life at death. So all these things have come not from any fancy, but from some experience. Of course, those experience, you need not need to go to coma to have those experiences. These experiences happen to people, to yogis, to rishis, usually, normally. Today we don't have rishis and yogis, so we have to go to the ICU to have experience. But some experience was there in describing about the beings. Like some experience was there to describe the life review. So life review is such an important thing. And mother gives this exercise that every day you do this, as if in a carton you project your whole day you project to the carton. And what are the negative points that happened? What are the points where you lost control of what are the places where you lost control? Like a life review, see your whole day's activities projected on a screen in front of you. This is a very interesting exercise. This is a very interesting exercise given by the mother directly, where you follow each movement of yours and you see the positive movements and the negative movements. You see the urges where you could have worked better. You could have controlled the urges. And then with this kind of exercise, a meditation exercise, a meditative exercise, this kind of meditative exercise, you have control more over your vital movements. You have more control over your highs and lows. You are more stable. So personally, this is a very good exercise which we can all follow. The second exercise the mother gave was, of course, mother gave this exercise that you consider yourself floating on the middle of an ocean on a raft, and then you are expanding, becoming bigger and bigger, and ultimately you have expanded so in all dimensions that you have become one with the whole surface of the water. there is the ocean, there is the sea, and white flame. You are enlarging yourself, you are expanding, enlarging, expanding and enlarging yourself until you become the whole ocean. Until you become the whole ocean. So this is an exercise where you identify with the cosmic consciousness. Of course, some people find it easier to identify by expanding in the space, expanding in the space, not on water, but on space, is expanding, expanding, expanding until one becomes one with the space. So this is also another exercise, which is a very beautiful exercise, and you have control over your vital movements, because to bring peace and stability in the vital is very important. You see, the Pranamoy Purusha, the Lord of the vital, the Purusha of the vital, is very difficult to get. It is something more difficult, perhaps, than the psychic being. Because you have to bring the peace and silence in your inner vital. Complete peace and silence in your inner vital, from where the outer vital will be affected. Complete peace and silence and mastery in the inner vital. Peace and silence in the inner vital, which will influence the outer vital to have peace and silence. And when that is complete peace and silence in the inner vital can lead to the realization of something which is beyond it. That is the Pranamaya Purusha, the true vital being, which is beyond it. Is very difficult. Psychic being by Mother's grace, we can have it. The psychic being by Mother's grace, we can have it. But the Pranamaya Purusha is very difficult to have an who is behind everything, but inside the vital. Complete peace and silence inside the mind is, of course, one thing. It is easy, comparatively easier to have peace and silence in the mind. But to have peace and silence in the vital, and of course, in the peace and silence in the physical is still more difficult for us to understand. It is more difficult for us to understand. But compared with the mind, the peace and silence in the mind, the peace and silence in the vital is very difficult to bring. So it is not only the mental silence and peace, it is the vital silence and peace that you have to cultivate. Of course, you have to start with the mental silence and peace, but then the mental silence and peace you have to bring to your inner vital. And that is difficult. I tell you, that is difficult. And once we can do it, then behind the inner vital, in the fourth dimension, is the Pranamaya Purusha. Then we can have an inkling of the Pranamaya Purusha when we have a true mastery over the vital. And for the other exercise, these two exercises that I told you, then the other thing is about time. Everything in the world doesn't depend upon time. Everything in the world doesn't depend upon time. So for time, that education has to start, that training has to start from very beginning. From very beginning, it has to start. From a childhood, it has to start. From a birth, it has to start. But the mothers, they have to start controlling the time. Then only that time sense will be important to the children. You see, when a mother is feeding a child, it is very important. The child, the baby gets the milk. And if you see a baby who is getting the milk, taking the mother's milk from the mother's breast, and after the baby has taken the milk, it lies down and it enjoys the milk. And actually it enjoys because the milk goes in, as long as the milk is in the stomach. After some time, if you follow, A child who has been laid to a bed after the child has taken milk from the mother's breast, a child is lying on a bed and the child is enjoying the milk until there is a gurgling sound. And the gurgling sound indicates that the milk has gone from the stomach to the small intestine. From there, the child does not have any remembrance of the milk. Up to the gurgling point, the remembrance is there. The baby enjoys the milk. If the mother is in a hurry and just after feeding the child, she mishandles the child, or she presses the child in a different way, or she is busy with her television show, then the child is affected. The feeding is affected. And that digestive process is affected. So you see, competing with time, not giving time to time, from the very the time has to be given to the child. Unless the time is given, the child will suffer. You see, a child who is learning to pass stool, a child doesn't know that a baby doesn't know that it has to pass stool at a particular period, at a particular time. The bowel habit has not developed still. Before the bowel habit develops, what happens? When a child has passed stool of the muscles of the large intestine, after some time, another small contraction occurs, a small amount of stool is passed. After the big amount of stool has passed, after say 15 minutes or half an hour, another small contraction happens, another amount of stool is passed. But the mother, because of her lack of time, she feels bored or she gets upset because she has cleaned the child and the child has again passed stool, and the baby sees the mother's reactions that he has passed another time of stool and the mother is not happy. And if this thing happens frequently, the baby learns to withhold the stool, and when the stool is withheld, the water is absorbed. The water is absorbed in the intestine, the stool becomes hard. And that is the origin of chronic constipation. That is the origin of chronic constipation. So you see that with time, if we are always competing with time, we are losing with the child. We are losing baby. And we are inflicting physical problems on the baby because the child will grow up, become a chronic constipated. So always you have to give time to time. So that is, he recommended that as he recommended this to the teachers of the school, that in all subjects you find out values or events which are not related with time. In history, in geography, in literature, you find out things which are not related with time. Give them to the children. Give them to the children, things which are not related with time. Play act them. Let them play act it. Let them dramatize those events. All events in life are not do not go with time. Not necessarily everything goes with time. So there are things which are independent of time. There are values of sincerity. There is a value of love. There is a value of there are other values similar to that which are independent of time. So these things have to be given to the children. So time management is a very important thing. That doesn't mean that to manage time for corporate work, but time management for oneself. so that one can be without time, in the dimension of timelessness. Then only the time dimension becomes important. Then only the time dimension becomes important. So all these things are very important thing to for the vital. For the training of the vital, these things are very important. For our highs and lows, all these things are very important. As you see, in the case of in the case of time, it spilled into the physical consciousness. The effects spilled into the physical consciousness, as you say. So projecting oneself on a screen the whole day, the activities, trying to identify with oneself while floating. So while expanding until one becomes the whole surface of the water on which one was floating, and then working with time. All these things are important way to control our vital. And once we have controlled the vital, the ups and downs, we have understood our ups and downs, and then we have brought peace and silence into our system, which is again different from the system in the mind. Then only we can have a glimpse of the Pranamaya Purusha. So that is all I wanted to tell today. Thank you. And any questions or any observations by you?
Thank you, Dr. Basu. There was a question on the chat actually from Mega. I don't know if you've answered it yet. Have you seen it, Dr. Basu?
Huh. Will you read out this question because I can't see it?
Okay, okay. Why is feeling all these emotions to its fullest and expressing them termed as moody, a negative touch? Is it a mood disorder? Feeling emotions to the fullest. Is that clear?
No, you have to repeat it.
Yeah. Why is feeling all these emotions to its fullest and expressing them termed as moody, a negative touch? Is it a mood disorder? Feeling emotions to the fullest. Is that a mood disorder?
It is not a mood disorder. Living emotions to the fullest is not a mood disorder.
Yeah.
Mood disorder, one has to get disorganized. But living emotions to the fullest doesn't mean that one is suffering from a mood disorder. But in mood
No.
disorder, one becomes disorganized. One leaves emotions. One thinks that one is living emotions to the fullest, but actually one is disorganized with all the emotions. Somebody raised a hand. Yes, Dipti.
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful education on the vital. Are there any meditations or techniques to experience this timelessness that you said?
All these experiences, you see that the most important experience is to develop the inner being. Developing the inner being is the most important experience for what is needed. And the inner being is behind the outer being, it is connected with the cosmic consciousness, and the inner being is there felt at many levels. But at the level of the vital, you have to feel the inner being.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions they want to ask? Or make any comments or?
Yeah, can I think we have run out of time.
No, come on, Abhijit.
So
Yeah, it's
should
fine.
I can put it in the chat box also. If
Okay.
you don't mind, I can also put it here.
Put
Okay.
it here, yeah. Put it here. We can't see it.
Yeah, it's like, I think Sri Aurobindo also says like punctuality and regularity is a great force. Having said that, how to harmonize, I'm just thinking how to harmonize timelessness and also be on time, real time, really, because we have to be punctual in work, on all that we do, as well as have that feeling of timelessness. Now, I have a sense, a feeling like, people who are in great control of oneself, maybe they can at times be very fast in their actions. Like if we really contemplate the lives of Sri Aurobindo or the great yogis, their thoughts, their writings, or great poets, the rapidity with which they create is amazing, really. And at the same time, they can become meditative or maybe rest in work and work in rest. That is completely harmonized in the system. Now, for ordinary mortals like us, I'm just trying to contemplate, is there any exercise or how to go about it really so that we don't miss out on real time? At the same time, we are not stressed up, and how to inculcate that habit and move towards perfection, to live with time and not be anxious and not be too much pressurized by time as well. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Basu, yeah.
Yes, simultaneously you have to work on the two dimensions. Working on the outer being to be perfect in timing, to be disciplined, to work to the fullest. Together with it, simultaneously one has to work on one's inner being. Then only the outer activities will not be a deterrent to health, will not be indicative of stress. One has to, it is not that stopping one and doing the other. It is not that you stop all these activities, outer activities, to do the inner being, to go to the timeless dimension. Not that. Simultaneously, it has to be done. Because the things that go in time is supported by the things that don't go with time, the timelessness. That supports the time dimension. So that is important to understand. So together with all the work in the outer world, one has to bring peace and silence in our inner being. One has to invoke that peace and silence inside the inner being. That alone is also very powerful method. The outer being's work will be modified and will not cause stress. Simultaneously bring the peace and silence in the inner being.
And another quick question, like the pranamaya purusha and the psychic being, are they different or is essentially the same? Psychic being and the pranamaya purusha.
Essentially, the same, the different poses of the same thing in different poses. It is the same thing in different poses. So one poise, it is the Monomaya Purusha, another poise, it is the Pranamaya Purusha, another poise, it is the Annamaya Purusha, and centrally it is the psychic being. But it is actually the same thing in different poses.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation and sharing. Thank you.
Thanks, Abhijit. Yeah. Okay, so we've reached our time. Thank you very much, Dr. Basu. Really illuminating talks. Sorry about the connection, everyone. It was quite poor at times, but we somehow muddled through. And we meet again tomorrow at 5:30 and look forward to that very much. Okay, so everyone, have a pleasant day, pleasant evening, and all the best, and see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Dr.
Thank you,
Basu.
Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Basu.
Thank you.